Hello folks, Todd Albee here again with SilverFire. In this video we're going to cover our Mongolian Dragon stoves. Now these stoves are very different than our portable recreation and disaster stoves. The Mongolian Dragons are fixed chimney stoves. These stoves are the type of stoves that a good percentage of folks in the world are using. These stoves are very different in the fact that they don't use lightweight installation. These are combination heating and cooking stoves, primarily cooking stoves. These stoves are you're going to find in large numbers of people use these in Mongolia and Tibet. Keep in mind that these types of kitchens typically have low ceilings, smaller square footage than developed nations. Oftentimes these folks have extra clothes, yak clothes and skins or so on and so forth on perhaps. These stoves are amazing clean burning after about 20 minutes to a half hour when the refractory cement gets up to temperature. The characteristics, of course, with our small portable stoves is they use lightweight insulation, light pellet stove type insulation, rock mineral wool, light and fluffy. So they're up to temperature to 400 degrees within a minute, minute and a half. They're burning clean. In contrast, with a stove that heats, you want more mass, like an adobe bread oven. Those stoves smoke until you get them up to temperature. And that's what we have here. This is using a lightweight refractory cement, but this stove weighs close to 200 pounds, whereas our little rocket stove weighs 12 and a half, our T-LED's 14, our little insulated backpack stove only 12 ounces with no insulation. So when you add refractory cement, more mass, we heat that up to let it radiate, to bake, to warm the room for several hours past that. The other thing, a lot of folks have asked us why we always have out of stock. Well, the reason very specifically is we don't ship these out until we talk to the customer and make sure what they want. You can see that these stoves are very, from a developed nation standpoint perhaps, maybe very crude stove. You know, most folks in the world aren't thinking about their custom wheels on their car or their spinners on their Escalade or what have you. They just want a durable cook stove. They just want a little infrastructure, maybe a little water to the home, and so on and so forth. These are amazing cook stoves. You know, just the contrast, a solicitation in the mail I received today, underwritten by Lowe's and GE and the local utility companies. This stove, the price of it is half the rebate provided in the promotion I received in the mail today on just a rebate on a hot water heater. You know, a very different set of dynamics. So this stove is not going to be in Home Beautiful. It's not going to be in Sunset Magazine. It's not going to be in Home and Garden. You can see that the paint job, you may see grinder marks under the metal. These folks look at this stove and say, it's a stove. It's cooking for me. It burns clean. This is what I want. It's very durable. This type of stove, when you pour the drawer out, you may even see some of the light refractory cement receiving this stove. We just unwrapped this one. We can see the crude left debris in the stove. It's not used. It was just put together and shipped. The paint job on these stoves is not spectacular because, again, these folks are cooking on them. This is their lifeblood for food preparation. This stove right here has a single burner, and we'll take a look inside the combustion chamber and we'll see the refractory cement here. There's a handle right here to move the grate around to drop any ash to the ash plate below that we take it out to empty the tray when we're done cooking. The the design of this stove, we can see the refractory cement and the different cast iron tops support the different types of pots that we're going to use in diameters. We can see the refractory cement. This is a T-LUD design, a top lit updraft stove. So of course we stack the fuel in vertically, put a little tinder on top, and top light the stove, and it burns down. And we have a side feed with this stove. So as we're cooking, and let's say we're doing really prolonged simmering, we need to add more wood or doing more heating, then we drop more fuel in the door. Or if you happen to be cooking and you happen to have the top off, moving the pot, you can drop more fuel. Or if you were just baking, we'll put the cast iron top back on the stove. And this is the baking compartment. Now, from a developed nation standpoint, that little baking compartment might not be that impressive. You know, it's only about the hand width and depth of my hand, the baking compartment. Typically, this stove is used for baking little buns or biscuit type items. A lot of these folks aren't doing multi-dense loaves of bread or so forth. So the baking compartments are small. This design right here, this Mongolian Dragon, is a single burner with the oven right below. You can walk into any hardware store and stick on a double layered chimney. Overseas, we see these stoves being used in Tibet, Mongolia, with single wall ducting. So it's whatever you're comfortable, how you want to cobble it up in your specific application. We don't give any guidelines on how to set this stove up. It is up to you to set it up. We don't have specifications on BTU ratings. Remember that with biomass, it's going to be very specific to the species, the moisture content, and the type of biomass that you're using. I often see overseas peanut shells being used in this stove, or corn cob, or wood, twigs, any flammable biomass, palm fronds. So a real mixture of fuels you'll see being introduced into the combustion chamber to efficiently cook. Again, the characteristic of this stove is it's going to take 20 to 30 minutes to get all this mass, that refractory cement, up to temperature. Then it will burn very cleanly. This model right here is a two-burner stove, and we have a little larger baking compartment in this stove. And this is the pan that goes in the baking compartment. So this stove could bake a single loaf of traditional developed world loaf of bread. So, but you can still see that's a very small oven, and you will see grind marks. The welds are cruder than maybe what you typically would see in a developed nation product. The paint job, there might be some runs, but this is typically you know, a stove that's going to be used maybe in your cabin, in your shop, in your garage. I send this stove up to Alaska, and a lot of folks really like it up there, but it may not be your cup of tea for your designer kitchen. This is the designer kitchen of the developing world. It's an amazingly good stove, but you can see the fit and finish. The welds are very thick and very crude from a developed nation standpoint, but the stoves work really well. So I want to give you that backgrounder. We're going to go ahead and load this combustion chamber. The front combustion chamber is where you're going to do your high fire power cooking and your simmering. The secondary burner on the double burner stoves are always to the rear and above the baking oven. This is where you're going to cook your soft simmering items like rice, and couscous and grains, where you're doing longer, lower temperature simmering. So we're going to go ahead and light the stove. And again, this is a top lit updraft stove, so we're just going to drop our fuel vertically into the combustion chamber. And we can load it through the front of the door if we want, or the side. And then we're going to take a little more tinder and throw that on top. So I'm going to grab a handful, a generous handful of tinder here. And I'm going to take a little linseed tack cloth here, a little tack cloth that has a little linseed oil on it, for real even distribution of ignition lighting this stove. And we're going to get this lit and get the flame established, and get back with you in about 20 minutes after we get a clean burn established. I don't want you to have to sit here and bear through watching this for 20 minutes getting established. Okay, so we're at about 20 minutes and we're more to a simmer, but you can see how the emissions have really cleaned up. We don't really see any emissions more. And at any time we can just open the door here and throw more fuel in and go back to a real high fire power. Let's say right now is an excellent temperature for simmering our rice or our beans or grains here at the back burner, but let's say we want to walk again. We just simply introduce new fuel through the front and it'll be back up to a fast burn. And maybe we'll just do that real quick. We'll take a little tinder here and we'll throw it, so we'll see a little more smoke come out of the chimney again. We'll throw that light little tinder in there and let it get back up to more of a higher power, and we'll get a close-up here. I threw it through the top. I probably should have thrown it through the door to show you, but we'll get a close-up here of the door and we can see it getting right back up to high firepower cooking again. And we'll get there's a nice shot here over the stove, so we'll get that. Now remember that you must call with the SilverFire Mongolian Dragon stoves if you're interested in this stove, because they do require a freight quote, because we're talking about 200 pounds on a pallet. And we also have a 50% restocking fee if you decide to send it back, and shipping, you will have to pay shipping for that. So we really want to make sure this is what you want before you purchase it. This is a fantastic cook stove. It burns real clean once the stove is up to temperature. You can see the stack here. It's burning really clean right now, and with my eye today, and I have good dry fuel in here, I see really no smoke coming out of the top of the stove right now. So this is our Mongolian Dragon. Thanks.